What is up, everybody? We're back. This time we're doing a hero or legend tier list, the individual characters in the game, kind of discussing how potent they are, how impotent they are, their flaws, their strengths, their all that good stuff. So, yeah, let's
Just get it started.
let's just jump right into it. We'll go ahead and start with Bangalore. We're just going to go down the line here. So we'll. There we go. We'll drag Bangalore out. When I first started playing this game, I thought she was kind of maybe below average, but as we've put more time into it, my opinion of her has definitely shifted.
The best description I've heard so far is the Soldier 76 of this game.
Of this game, yeah,
of
and
Apex.
with the limited hero pool, there aren't a lot of the different game style entirely, right? There aren't a lot of the same problems that Soldier runs into in Overwatch that make him a little less viable.
Right. But on the surface, it can seem to players who have played a lot of hero shooters or ability-based games in general, like a MOBA, that Bangalore is someone who is like, oh, this seems kind of like an intro character, not someone who's going to be very valuable in most situations, but she creates space.
Yeah.
Can't stress that enough.
So what ends up happening as more playtime went on, she turns to me to be more almost like an off tank or a main tank from Overwatch, more like an off tank probably, but a really, really aggressive space pusher. She commands an area. When she puts down that smoke, nobody wants to push through that area. Nobody wants to be in that. Nobody wants to be around it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not being able to see is a massive hindrance in this game.
It's scary.
And you can bet that Bangalore or the people on that Bangalore squad have done everything they can to get threat scopes on their weapons so that they can see in her scope. And if you pass one up because it didn't have any synergy in your squad and you run into a Bangalore, that can really be a tough one. And her passive ability is a little undersung, honestly, I think. Her ability to sprint faster when under enemy fire. It's a pretty big movement speed buff. I don't know the actual number.
I've literally seen it save people time and time again.
In fact, we were playing one time, and one of our buddies was playing Bangalore, and we were caught inside the storm, where he was anyways. We had, we're a little bit ahead of it, and there was a squad behind us, and while they were running, they were shooting at him. And he literally would not have had enough health to make it out of that storm, because it was mid to late game, so the storm was chunking for a decent amount, if he didn't have the increased movement speed he got from the squad mates firing, or the enemy squad firing at him. So it can be certainly valuable, good for repositioning, good for quick pushes, aggressive flanks. It really synergizes well with that aggressive space-taking play style.
It does,
yeah, and then do you have anything about the ultimate, the carpet bomb?
No, the ultimate, I feel like it's almost similar to Gibraltar's in the way that it forces people out of positions, but it's really, really annoying for most people because it covers a crazy amount of area and it gives all these HUD notifications that like this is near you, and anywhere they go they get stuck by it. So most people aren't going to want to push out. From what I've seen, like when they do get surrounded by it, most of them don't push out of the area like completely. They try to find a spot that's just not hit by it, which if you're playing her smart enough, you can kind of push in while they're kind of panicked and trying to find that spot and just put more pressure on them, and maybe they'll back up into one of or two of her carpet bombs.
Yeah.
Or even you'll just be able to get them with their pants down as they try to find cover.
Exactly. And if you combine that with their smoke, it becomes a lot harder for them to find a specific cubby to kind of tuck themselves into to avoid that damage. But I think more often than not, I see this ultimate being used most effectively as a pressuring and zone denial tool than a damage tool. I think it's less effective than Gibraltar's ult in the regards of damage output.
I think you're right.
It's a little bit easier to avoid than a Gibraltar ult, but it does cover a pretty good stretch of territory. So if you have them in a choke, or you have an advantageous position, or you're trying to force them to move somewhere, it's pretty good for that if you're really good with aiming that marker to set that up. So, and initially I was like, if you'd asked me when it first started, I would have put her B tier. If you'd asked me 30 hours into the game, I probably would have put her A tier. Now I'm not sure if she's A or A+.
I'm also in between A or A+ with her. I feel like it depends where everybody else falls, but I would honestly, because again, a lot of these heroes, as we have a comp-based video already, a lot of these heroes are based around like how well they work with comps. She works well with a lot of comps and is also substitutable for a lot of players and a lot of heroes and a lot of comps. So I'm gonna put her A plus just because she can synergize really well with a lot
that's
of the other heroes.
kind of what I was thinking was A plus, and
So make sure you prioritize getting those target finders or threat detectors on your scopes as much as possible when you're playing her.
yeah. And before we go any further, actually, I'm just gonna kind of discuss how at least how I view tiers in this format. So S tier is debatably above the point of balance, arguably a must pick, someone that you can at least someone you can slot into any composition and they'll do well in.
Yeah.
A is the pinnacle of balance. This character has a lot of good matchups, a few bad matchups, can do well in a lot of places, but isn't overwhelming. So an A plus is obviously that middle ground in between where they're crazy good, but they don't feel quite overpowered per se or a must pick. And then B is slightly below the point of balance where they're still viable. You can still run them, but it might require a little bit more thought about your composition, how it works together, that sort of thing. And then C is you probably shouldn't be playing these characters, or if you are, then your entire composition is based around them. That's kind of how I look at these sort of tiers. So as we move down the line to the next one, next we have Bloodhound.
This is my main. Honestly, he plays well. He plays extremely well in some of the high tier comps when you start getting him with the right people. But he also performs super poorly when he doesn't have the right other heroes around him or legends around him to help support him during those plays. So personally, I don't think I can rank him too high just because of how poorly he plays with others sometimes. But then again, he plays so significantly well with certain heroes. It's hard not to put him high. So
I think with him, he's this interesting situation where his entire kit is sort of based around gathering information and acting on it. Where if you find yourself in a situation where you can't easily communicate with your team, he becomes a lot worse. And granted, Apex has a wonderful ping system that allows you to communicate things very effectively. For a fast-paced game like this, it's up there with some of my favorite quick chat systems. So he's not a complete loss in your matchmaking games where your teammates don't have mics or can't hear your in-game chat because they have it muted for whatever reason, right? But when you do have communication, his ability to track people down, his ability to make those scans, make those pushes, communicate those things, make those play calls is vastly better than I think anyone else in the game by far. So ranking him's kind of hard. I think after 20 hours of play, I was pretty solid on him being an A plus character. But most of our playtime has been at a minimum in a 2 stacked, but more often than not 3 stacked, right? We've had a full squad in comms, people we know, people we've played with before, and he's incredible in that scenario.
I've also played him a good amount in solo, and oftentimes I'll find people who don't have mics, and that's when I can still perform well if I'm on a mic, but if you don't have a mic and you're playing Bloodhound, you're wrong. Stop. Find a mic, buy a mic, or stop playing Bloodhound, because the communicating is just so important.
Definitely. If you don't have a mic and you're not a god tier master with the ping and communication system, you're going to struggle with Bloodhound. And I think for that reason, for the solo queue matchmakers that might watch this video, I think we have to put Bloodhound in A tier.
I think you're right. I think he's a really balanced character. He doesn't feel overpowered with his abilities, but he also doesn't feel crazy weak at any time. He can perform well in any hands as long as his hands are good or decent or have at least 1 plus to the categories that he needs, like communication, team play, or skill.
I think part of the reason I struggle putting him in A instead of A plus is he's such a unique character. There isn't another tracker class in the game, right? There are other tanks, there are other DPS characters, there are other supports. But there's nobody that can really fill his role. So, but I think A is probably a good place for him right now.
I think he fits well in A.
I think when people begin to play the game more and they understand compositions and how to work and synergies and stuff, I think even in solo queue, when people start to get a good understanding of that, he might move up to A plus. But for now, I think he has to be A. So next, let's talk about Caustic. I think he is drastically underrated. A lot of the articles I've seen online, a lot of the discussion I've had with other players have been, he's underpowered, his gas doesn't do enough. it's just such a low damage output. He's not really present. Those sort of things. Like I said in our team composition video, Caustic is the character I've played the second most behind Lifeline, and I have to disagree. Granted, maybe his gas doesn't do quite enough damage. It is definitely not what you're going to be killing people with, that's for sure. It's not that kind of ability. However, the sheer number of traps he's able to set up, that's 6 traps. There's no way you're not going to be able to secure a position with 6 traps. The slow that they put on to opposing teams, the disruption, the small amounts of tick damage, like what have you, the general craze it puts. People walk in, get hit with those traps, and they freak out. Right? They're expecting someone to be on top of them with a peacekeeper already, or whatever. And I think that effect is a little bit undervalued. Not to mention the information you gather. Right? If you've been leaving traps behind you as you've been moving through space in the game, and one of those traps proc, oh crap, there's a team, maybe 200 meters behind us. And you can make a decision, right? Do we run somewhere, get the high ground, and kind of keep our eye out, or do we turn around and try and intercept them somewhere? So in that way, he's one of the only other characters that's really able to gather information. Maybe definitely less effective than Bloodhound.
Right, it's different. It's definitely less active information. It's more long distance, or I suppose it's like, I wouldn't say situational, I would just say it's slow paced information in a way. And
it's really only for the people that are behind you. That being said, he does have some interesting uses. If you guys need to pin down and heal, he can throw traps up around you to kind of put a wall up against those sort of aggressive pushes when people know you're healing. And I've seen that be very effective in a lot of our games. I mean, I think we won a couple firefights even tonight because when they tried to push, they got hit with poison gas and they back up or they freak out, and it opens up the opportunity to get those shots out or finish that Phoenix kit. A second thing, which I don't know if a lot of players know about, but you can actually use this trap to block doors.
I don't think anyone knows that. I haven't seen it used at all outside of when we play.
Yeah, I actually did see it in a video recently. Stylosa talked about it in one of his Apex videos. So might become more prominent knowledge.
Hopefully, it's a huge ability that you all need.
If you're a Caustic player or you like Caustic's kit but you think he's a little bit underviable, knowing that one thing can really change the game. Now, of course, they can use grenades or they can kick the door in or whatever to break the door down and then shoot the trap or whatever they need to do to get in. But that's still a big barrier to entry, right?
They're gonna have to have a grenade, and if they go to kick,
they'll get gassed, right? Yeah. So you can literally seal off a entire door, basically.
Yeah.
You still have to keep your eye on it, right? But it is effectively that much harder for them to push that door. Of course, that can also be a detriment to you and your team if you get pushed and you need to leave out the back door. But you can also shoot your own traps to deactivate them. So if you feel that pressure coming and you have enough foreknowledge, which you won't a lot of the time, but sometimes you will, you can deactivate the trap and book it out the back.
The trap won't hurt you. So.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt you or your teammates, so nothing to worry about there. I think that's really all there
covers most of Caustic.
Yeah, his ultimate is kind of weak. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it doesn't do too much.
The area it covers is just not big enough. You have to be really precise about that grenade placement. It has its moments of use, but in the open field, it's going to do next to nothing for you. It's very easy to avoid. You can see through the fringes. It's not as thick as Bangalore's smoke. But if you are coming towards the later phases in this game, or really even any engagement, and you see an enemy team is hole up in a house, that's particularly a small one, but most any house, honestly, and you're able to get a line to throw that grenade through a window, that is definitely one place where it becomes very effective. Because they're forced to either sit there and take that true damage underneath their shields, right? Or they have to push out and become vulnerable. And you're already ready for either of those options.
And I'm sure you can find a way to use a Wraith ult combining with a Caustic ult to be a little cheeky and get some nice plays off.
Kind of zoom right in, drop a grenade, zoom right out. But you have to be careful about that because, of course, it leaves up the opportunity for them to take it out. Of course, but
you could be ready with shotguns
or SMGs or whatever. You know. So definitely a lot of room for high skill level plays. Really big brain, 200 IQ maneuvers, right? So if you're thinking and you're communicating well, he can be an excellent asset to the team if your team understands how he works and you understand how he works. That being said, I don't think there's not a shadow of a chance he can pass A tier. He's at a minimum or at a maximum an A tier character in the current at the current state of the game.
Yeah, he's not going to be anything at A plus or S tier for sure.
So probably A tier.
I would put him in an A tier. I think he's pretty valuable in most situations. You just got to learn how he can be played, and people try to use him in a very his traps and only for active combat and stuff like that, which they can be, but it's not all they're used for. So if you're only doing that, you're losing value on the character by not utilizing the rest of the situations he's useful for. So you just gotta start understanding that character more, and you'll understand why it's an A tier character.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're actually going to end up with anything below A tier. So far, the characters in the game have been pretty balanced.
Phenomenal job with balancing these characters.
But Caustic was probably the community's general consensus in the beginning to probably be that B or C tier character, and I really think people just haven't figured him out quite yet.
I think you're right.
So let's move on to Gibraltar. Kind of the main tank, if you will, of Apex. We talked at length about his abilities in our team composition video. He fits into a lot of comps he works very well in a lot of situations. His bubble shield is really great for getting off that clutch res or resetting when you've been ambushed to kind of get those heals off and force them to push aggressively, or covering distances that would leave you exposed that you're going to take fire from, those sort of things. His ultimate, super useful in late game, great zoning tool, very effective. His arm shield, good in certain situations, bad in other situations.
Yeah. Late game is not going to be as effective.
Yeah. As a Gibraltar character, main, or player, whoever you might be, keep in mind that your Gibraltar arm shield glows a bright orange to anybody that is against you. Everyone else in the game sees a bright orange glow. I cannot tell you the number of times I have spotted squads moving across the hillside because their Gibraltar is aimed down his sights and his shield is active. There's a toggle button for that.
There is, for that reason.
And I know that it can be kind of a pain to remember whether you've toggled it on or off or not. But that's one of those things where you just kind of have to get used to as a Gibraltar character. And honestly, of course, that's the only real downside to the arm shield. That, and just don't expect it to soak up too much damage. If someone walks around the corner and has a Peacekeeper on you, that shield's going to go down in one shot. You're still going to take a good chunk of damage.
Right. It's basically nullifying like the first few shots of something small or one shot of something heavy. It's not going to do much for you. It's just keeping you alive a little longer, hence why he's a tank. It's not going to be a game-changing, game-breaking, or anything like that. So understand what it is. Understand late game, you're also going to be taking a lot of damage from it when it gets dropped, just because people are going to have those better guns and stuff like that, who they can hit better shots with those more powerful guns, and it's not going to last very long.
Yeah, but I think his ability to occupy space and really deny the damage output of the other team, if a enemy Gibraltar ults on top of you, or you're on the edges of a Bangalore ultimate or something like that, you can really use that bubble to throw up an area of protection to stop that fire, which can give your teammates a chance to reset and get ready for an engagement if they weren't ready for it before, get those heals off, switch to the weapon they feel like best suits the situation, those sort of things. Really buying your teammates time and being able to threaten that position. So that being said, I kind of feel like he ekes into A+.
I think he does eke into A+. I think he's viable in too many comps not to be A+, because again, it's a team game. You're never going to be alone unless you're going off by yourself or your teammates left, in which case, I'm sorry. So he works well with too many characters, because just alone, characters can work around him. He doesn't have to synergize technically with anybody in particular.
And even as a solo character, he's not bad.
I've actually won a game by myself as Justin Gibraltar. My teammates left in the beginning, and I had to solo, and I ended up winning. I found a Mastiff at the end, but that was only at the end, so...
Yeah, he's definitely good on his own. The arm shield giving a little bit of extra survivability in those 1v2 engagements. The bubble shield, doing that. So solo, he can do pretty decently. And I think this is probably a good spot to mention if you're not aware. I know a lot of people say Gibraltar feels slow and that he's so much slower than the other characters, but that's actually not true. There isn't a difference in movement speed for any of the Legends heroes in the game.
Nope, all the same.
They all have the same base movement speed. They all sprint the same speed. There's nothing there. Some of them obviously have abilities that augment their movement speed, but at a base level, they're all the same. All right, Lifeline. Woohoo, the fun one.
It's not really even a question at this point.
Yeah,
I think our opinions are clear, and so is the community's. I haven't run across a single.
It's not true. I have seen one tier list where she was drastically underrated. Somebody put her in B tier.
Well, that tier list is wrong.
So,
don't listen to them.
if you haven't watched our composition video or you haven't played the game for more than 5 hours and you don't know, Lifeline is a shoo-in in any composition. She fits everywhere. She's extremely strong. Her abilities are insane. The value you can get out of her in a fight, or not even in a fight, but just throughout the course of a game, is just insane. You know,
Her ult is the longest charge in the game because it's the most powerful in the game. And those ult accelerants, which at this point most players I run across know to, if you have a lifeline, give all the ult accelerants to the lifeline, because it's 20% default. It's not shave off this amount of time. It doesn't scale with people who have longer ult charges. So literally, not only do that ult accelerant get the most use on a lifeline, but that lifeline ult takes forever to charge because you're calling in a drop pod, a care package, which has this incredible loot on it most of the time.
you know, there have definitely been times where we've gotten pods that have been more or less
Duds.
just duds, right? It happens. But as I said in the composition video, her ultimate really rounds out the RNG that you can run into in the game. You know, if maybe you guys just cannot find anything than blue tier armor. I cannot tell you the number of times I've gotten purple or even sometimes legendary armor out of my Lifeline care packages. That alone changes the fight, right? That's 25 more effective HP that you have to play with. If that's the difference between getting killed by one shot from a Kraber and not, right? If you have a decent helmet and purple armor, a Kraber's not going to kill you in one hit, right? But if you don't have that purple armor, you're going down right away. Right away. So her ultimate is insane. It's incredibly valuable. It really gets your squad the gear it needs. One of the stat trackers I use on her is number of items given to my teammates because it's just that important.
It is. It's so clutch, so crucial.
You know, so going past that, we'll talk about her passive next. She has a lot there. Honestly, her passive is really heavily involved. She uses healing-based items, so your medkits, your syringes, and I think even the shield items as well. 25% faster than their base time requirement, and that can be really clutch in the middle of a fight. It makes a big difference. You stack that with the legendary backpack, and all of a sudden you're just instantly popping shield cells, right? So it's pretty strong for sure. And that's not to mention the other part of it where she reses people faster than other characters. And she gets a barrier while rezzing, so if you're not under perfect cover but you know the direction the fire is coming from, you can prevent all of that damage while rezzing the character, and they're forced to push you.
Yes,
right?
They have to go out of position and try to make a play.
Or grenade you, right?
Yeah,
they could lock grenades.
Which makes that combo with Gibraltar a lot more crucial because you can just stop
Yeah.
all those nades in there.
But of course, they have to react fast enough to do that. If they spend a second realizing what's happening and understanding that they don't have an angle to shoot, and then they have to switch to their grenade, aim it, and then throw it, you're already up, right?
You're out.
You know, so that's an incredibly potent ability. I cannot tell you how many times Lifeline's faster res time has saved us in team fights, or at least prolonged those team fights for us. And then we'll go to her third ability, her tactical ability.
It just feels like icing and just like a perk on
Yeah,
this
yeah.
cake of a character already.
Yeah.
If you don't have this ability in this character, she is an A+ character already. She's so good and she's viable and just essential to teams and team play that it's kind of just like why, and even solo with how fast that she can use those cells and those stims, why not use her? But when you add this ability that you can have that lets you guys stay in the storm longer, because when you get out you can just pop this, you don't have to worry about having medkits or anything, or you can use it just in a team fight, place in a plate like behind a rock, and your teammates, whenever they're behind, reloading or getting cover, replacing their shields. They're also getting health back if they lost any. Having that is so crucial and like just so clutch so often that it just makes her so incredibly better than every other legend on this list.
I definitely would agree. And even that being said, at a glance for most new players or casual players, you look at her kit in the description list and you're probably like, oh, that heal bot's probably super valuable. And honestly, I think it's her worst ability.
It is her worst.
And it's still better than a lot of the abilities of some of the other heroes.
Right.
They're a big thing in competitive games is resource strain, right? And the rate at which Healbot heals you, more often than not, you're not going to be using a mid-team fight for that sustain, right? Unless you have a Gibraltar shield and you have those 15 seconds to kind of reset, you're not really going to be popping it and like hugging up next to it and hoping that you can out-sustain the damage that's coming in. It's not that kind of material. But what it can do is lessen the amount of med packs, Phoenix kits, whatever, that your team has to use outside of engagements. And that can really become a factor once you get into those fights. So, Lifeline, an easy S tier character.
Easy S tier.
Moving on, we have Mirage.
Would you say in most tier lists he would be over or underrated?
To be honest, I think when I looked around at tier lists, I didn't pay too much attention to Mirage. I hadn't played with or against him a whole bunch when I was first looking at them. But I think he's all over the place. I think people don't know how to feel about him yet.
I don't think anyone knows how to feel about him. I don't think he knows how to feel about him.
He definitely doesn't know how to feel about himself. But that being said, I think he's a good character. I don't think he's bad.
Yeah. I think Respawn did a great job with balance. I don't think any character is really completely useless or, obviously Lifeline's a little aggressively must pick, but that's other reasons. But yeah, I don't think any character here is just like without their uses and just never should be picked at all or anything like that. No one's trashed here.
I have to admit that the decoy that Mirage deploys is one of the best implemented into a game that I've seen, to date. More often than not, it becomes very obvious to tell, who's a decoy and who's not. But in the way this game works with your peeking in and out of cover, in that split-second moment of seeing an enemy legend pop out, right, you're going to fire at it, unless you are lucky enough to see the initial setup effects to know that that's a decoy, right? You're going to end up firing at it, and that'll either reveal your position, or maybe it's bought the Mirage time to flank, or maybe it's bought his team time to disengage, so that ability, his tactical ability, is certainly convincing.
It feels to me that the Mirage moves a little slower than I'd like, to be honest, when I see it. When I do play Mirage, I feel like it moves a little slow. I think it's the same speed as he would be if he was pretty with the gun that you're holding. Maybe if you put the gun, I haven't tried to, you put the gun away and then send him out, he would run at the holstered weapon sprint speed. But I wish he ran like that defaultly, so I don't have to holster my weapons, because that's just like so much faster. You know right away that could be someone trying to make a move, because if I were running away from a fight, I would holster my weapons, because if I'm not going to use them, you want to put them away, run as fast as you can. Doing that makes it so much more believable. I know if I just saw a legend running without a weapon, I'm going to try to shoot as much as I can before they get away, and that would definitely, as he says, bamboozle me.
It sure would. Yeah, definitely bamboozled. Another thing that people don't know about his decoy ability is that you can actually use it twice when dropping.
You can. So if your team leaves, it's just you dropping, you can act like you have a full team. But more importantly, actually, you can use it if you break away from your team to send off two more of yourselves if there's more people dropping, to kind of confuse people around you and make them think that you're dropping next to them. In reality, you're going to buy yourself maybe a few more seconds or time in a certain area. Or if you think you're going up against a solo player, right, and you have a team next to you or someone near you, can send maybe two in the same direction and kind of push that player who broke off from his team a little bit back towards his team to give yourself more area to loot and a little more time, as he won't want to try to engage with those quote-unquote two other legends, which don't exist.
Right. And even beyond that, I know we have, and I've seen other players, when they feel like there's too many people going to a certain area, they'll just turn away and go somewhere else entirely. It's definitely not going to be a consistent thing, but hurling those two decoys at the location you're traveling to or near in the same general map area, right, might end up dissuading a team being like, oh, there's too many teams there. We don't want to fight that. There's not going to be enough loot for everybody. Right? And you might push an entire team out of an area.
Not a huge ability.
Not game changing,
but definitely something to take into consideration.
Yeah. So his other abilities. Let's talk about his passive. It's interesting. I think it has its place for sure. Depending upon your composition, it becomes more or less effective. More, and by that I mean whether or not you have a lifeline in your comp. But if you don't know what it is, when he gets knocked down, right, he creates a decoy and goes invisible, and then has 5 seconds to crawl away while invisible. At a glance, probably not crazy effective, but I've definitely seen in games where the Mirage will get knocked, and with that invisibility, he'll be able to like crawl outside, get underneath the staircase, and hide in a manner that the other players, if they don't have a Bloodhound or something like that, have a really hard time tracking him down. You know, or like I said, if you have a lifeline on your team who has that faster res time, they might be able to sneak away in those 5 seconds and buy enough time for your lifeline to res you before they, figure out what's happened. Of course, I think as players play the game more and they recognize, hey, I'm killing a Mirage. When he dies, he's going to go invisible and drop a decoy, right? They'll be a lot more quicker to respond to that and search it.
Maybe throw a grenade at the area just in
right.
general. Just to try to
search him out. Sorry.
Something you should be aware of with Mirage, I've noticed is a lot. Players will try to use that ult and go invisible and then charge at a team. You're more visible than you think.
Yeah, you're still seeable. You
can still get seen, and I can still see you, and anyone can still see you. If you're running in a straight line at a team, or even actually more diagonal at a team, your outline becomes very obvious. So I don't know. Try to still use cover when you can, but just understand that if you're in a situation where there's maybe like a few rocks or something, you could probably run from rock to rock while invisible, and they won't really notice you because you won't be a consistent moving figure. You'll just be something that kind of flashes, and it might just be people might just write you off, and if they do see it as something that like didn't really happen, it might be the eyes playing tricks on them or something like that. But in general, you'll be less likely to be seen if you do stuff like that. So don't just run straight at a team after you ult. They'll probably see you, and you'll get gunned down because you're still hittable too. You're not. It's not a Wraith ability. You're not unhittable. You're definitely still damageable.
And another thing I've seen with Mirage's ult, now that we're talking about that, is it creates a hologram of an entire other squad, right? And
I think it's even more than
it is actually more, which kind of actually bothers me a little bit, but that's besides the point. I have seen it dissuade teams that are looking to pinch in a firefight, right? There's 2 teams already engaged in a firefight. They're Mirage ults, and that third team that just comes around the corner, right, sees that there's there's 3 teams there.
Yeah.
Right? Let's get the heck out of here
yeah.
and like reposition and look for an engagement elsewhere. Certainly a niche circumstance, but it can definitely save you from getting pinched by posing a bigger threat than you actually have available.
It's kind of like puffing up.
Yeah.
As animals do when they get cornered. It's basically what Mirage does. He's basically a fight or flight and a lot of flight.
Yeah. That being said, I don't think I have anything else for Mirage.
Not too much. I just don't think he works crazy well on a ton of comps. This is the biggest thing.
At least what we've seen so far, and the compositions we've run ourselves and tested and theory crafted, and the compositions we've run up against, I haven't seen Mirage be very useful, very synergistic in certain compositions.
Yeah, he's not unusable.
He's not unusable by any means. In fact, I think he is one of the best, maybe the best solo player.
Yeah.
Now, I know Apex doesn't have a solo queue, but sometimes you find yourself in that situations where your teammates are dead or they quit, or maybe even you're just flanking on a push, right? And that is in essence a solo play style, right? So he can be very effective in those kind of situations. Certainly usable. I'm just kind of thinking about this now. The more that we've talked about him, and the more we compare these other teams, but I do think he might be on the lower end of A, but probably in A.
I almost want to put him in B.
I think as players get used to playing against him more, because he's obviously one of the not immediately unlocked. You have to pay the in-game currency or the premium currency to unlock him. So in this first week, not a lot of people have seen a whole bunch of Mirage. But I do think as players play against him more, he will definitely end up in B tier.
That's why I want to put him in there now.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be B because it's the same thing. There's no other invisibility like his. Yeah, Mirage or Wraith, goes quote unquote invisible, but like she really just goes unhittable as you can see where she's going because the path. You don't have to worry about finding her. You follow the path. Mirage himself doesn't have a path to follow. You have to look for it in particular. And I'm not sure if any of you've ever played that game like Halo or Overwatch. I think Overwatch has invisibility. Yeah, or like Overwatch
Yeah.
has an actual invisibility, as Halo doesn't. Halo would have like
Close.
a cloaking
Yeah.
sort of like fissury effect on the hero character, and the slower they move, the less you can see them, but they're never truly invisible. The more you play games like that, the easier it is for you to see them because you train your eyes to look for that. So with Mirage, the more this game gets played, the more you play against him, you'll learn to see it, and it'll be much easier to spot him out. That will have to be something that they maybe either tweak or they'll have to change him a bit to make him more viable. Because as soon as people know how to find him, or their eyes train more to see him better, he's going to be almost a not pick.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest, I've already started to see myself be able to pick out his decoy more easily than before.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's running at a weird angle and it just shouldn't be. Maybe you put enough bullets into him and you like, wait, no, he should definitely be in cover. There's no way he's pushing right now. Those kind of things, you start to develop that sense. And I definitely think he gets weaker as players get more experienced. Not to say that a good Mirage can't do incredible things if they know how to place their decoy well or the timing of their abilities. But I definitely think he falls into that D category where he's slightly below the point of balance, certainly still viable in some compositions and has his strong matchups, but not a can fit into most composition kind of.
Using the decoy well will come down to the player himself, not really so much the other team. If you don't know how to make the Mirage decoy believable, then no one else will really be believing it. No one else will fall for it, so you're not going to be able to get use out of it. So,
all right.
Let's move on now to Pathfinder. Someone who I have seen all over the board and flex a lot, as he was someone who people love to play, people hate to play, was trash, was great, and just all over the place, and people learning how to play him. He seemed to have had the biggest understanding curve. I don't even want to call it a learning curve. Understanding curve of how he even works.
I would definitely say that when we first started playing this game, we read his abilities, we kind of played with some people who played Pathfinder, we played against some Pathfinders, and we immediately thought he was the least powerful hero in the game. I don't think that's the case that's certainly not the case for me anymore. 50 hours deep, I've really learned to see the usability of Pathfinder. His ability his grapple ability, his tactical, his Q or whatever, his left bumper, it shoots out that grappling hook and it pulls you in a direction. I don't think a lot of players have figured out yet that you can actually look in a certain direction to make yourself swing as opposed to just get pulled to that point. And you can really pick up some speed. I mean, I've covered a lot of map terrain swinging with his grapple in a very short amount of time. It's certainly very effective if you know how to use it right. And not to mention the amount of vertical movement, verticality you can get with it. If you manage to run around a corner away from an enemy and then grapple up onto the high ground and they run around and they don't see you, they're looking around and you can like rain down on them or pop your healing kits. He has a lot of good evasion in that sense. The grapple is slow though. If you are the kind of person who is using it and you point out a direction and you just have it pull you in that direction, there's the shot time, then there's a setup time before you start moving, and then there's an acceleration time. So if you're using it mid-combat as an escape to a point while you're being shot at, it's more often than not probably going to get you killed.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of Pathfinders use it as that, or even just try to close the gap on someone. And as soon as I hear it come out, or anybody I've seen hears that get shot, they usually push back up from behind their cover, see him, and he's completely vulnerable. He can't even shoot, and they just gun him down while he's on the zip line or the grapple.
Yeah, definitely. I'm saying I'm too much. Rip me. My brain's gone. Yeah, it's not a Widowmaker hook. That's what I was trying to say.
It is not a Widowmaker
right? It's
hook.
not a Widowmaker hook. It's not gonna. You're not gonna hook shot yourself up into the air with a, legendary sniper and blow up heads. Right? That's not Pathfinder.
No.
You really have to learn to play him better.
It's like a Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's like a Spider-Man. In that sense, for sure. So then we can talk about his ultimate, I guess, the zip line.
It might be the fastest charging in the game.
I think it is. I haven't looked up the stats on this, but having played him a couple of games now and really felt it, I have. It's quick. It charges very, very quickly, to the point where we'll drop in, we'll loot an area, and I'll fire the zip line to get us to the next area or traverse a long open part of the terrain, and then we'll start looting again. And by the time we need to move out, I have it again, right? So you can really get your whole team moving across the map extremely quickly. And you can also use it to reach high places, cross gaps. So it has a lot of team mobility. And I think it is a little underrated, underused. I think people are hesitant to use their zip line. Don't be.
Don't use it. It's not your lifeline. It'll come back.
Yeah, in the time it takes to start and finish a ultimate accelerator, I think you've already got 10% before you get the extra 20 at the end of that, right?
Yeah.
So it charges just insanely quickly.
Learning how to use it to gain those distances, those flanks, and just like mid combat, just kind of like setting it up so you can drop in certain areas. Because remember, you can just drop off of one of those and take no fall damage. When you learn how to do that and you learn the map better, and you're playing with a squad who understands you and the character and the map as well, and how your team should work together, you can really again work just phenomenally. Like as that ability can kind of just like win you team fights almost on its own by just positions alone.
Yeah. And then there's just passive, which you scan survey beacons to gain the knowledge of where the next circle is going to be. This can either be extremely amazing or completely useless.
Mm-hmm.
It depends entirely on the playstyle of you and your squad.
The composition of you and your squad.
The composition of you and your squad. Not to mention your ability to understand where the survey beacons are.
You gotta go to them.
Right. If they're marked on the map, I haven't seen them yet. When I get close, I get a HUD alert that there's one nearby. But
they're on the map.
Are they on the map?
Yeah.
I haven't figured out what their identifier is. Granted, I've only played them a couple of times, but yeah, and then just being able to navigate there quickly. I mean, we in the team comp video, we built a composition based almost entirely around the ability to know ahead of time where you need to be preparing your position. So, I saw a tier list that said that his passive is the weakest passive in the game, and I don't know if that's true or not, but it's certainly still
on its own.
usable.
It might be.
Certainly still usable. Yeah. I don't think there's too much else to talk about.
Not with Pathfinder. I think we covered most of it.
Yeah. I think
he's more than just a smiley robot.
Yeah.
Don't pick him because he's a smiley robot. Please understand that he's a smiley robot Spider-Man. And use him as such.
Yeah, and if your teammates get frustrated at you for playing Pathfinder, they probably just don't entirely understand him yet. But also, they're really hoping that you do understand him.
Yeah, it's more of a hope than because a lot of people again who play this Pathfinder don't. Pathfinder seems to be one of the most picked when I'm playing either solo queue or duo queue out of that random for some reason, and they just don't know how to play him. I don't know why he's picked a lot. I understand he's a robot, and it might be something to do with it. People like robots or whatever.
I think he's got a really quirky personality to him, and I know I enjoy it. I find him hilarious. I really enjoy his personality, and that might be part of why the people gravitate towards Pathfinder. Can't really say for certain, but yeah, I think Pathfinder ekes his way into A tier in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I'll trust you on that one. I haven't seen a crazy good Pathfinder yet, but I've seen videos of good Pathfinders, so I see he can probably do A tier.
I definitely, like I said, when we first started playing, I thought he was going to be C tier. When I first started playing him, I thought, okay, well, maybe he'll be B tier. And then the more I understood him, I'm like, well, maybe he kind of finds his way into A tier.
Get away with that A tier spot.
With players who are good with him, he's A tier.
If there was a B+, he'd probably be sitting there.
You know what? Why don't we're going to do one of these. We're going to be like, he's somewhere in the middle.
Obviously depends on your own knowledge and skill level, but we're talking about people like the above average player, because this video is not going to be watched by people who are just playing it casually, so the whole average of everyone's skill is going to go up a lot when you take out that whole bottom rank. So
I would say he is B+ with the caveat of he's an easy A character if you can operate him well.
I would agree. And now the last one,
but not least,
my
Wraith.
favorite.
The most picked solo queue character in the game.
These players are the kindest, most team-oriented, non-toxic players I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
I don't hate you if you play Wraith, but understand I'm way more inclined to dislike your personality. You can prove me wrong.
That's fine. Don't worry
Okay.
about it.
You can prove me wrong. I'm sure a lot of you are great people. I'm sure you are. But again, she's the highest pixel Q character for a reason. People think that that ability to kind of go invisible and get away, to get out of jail free cards, so I don't have to worry about where my team is or how they operate. I can do this on my own. You're wrong. You'll get gunned down. Can't tell you how many times I've seen a Wraith try to use that to get away from me. And in my brain, I just go, oh, I know. I'll just follow. And I follow you. And by the time you're out, you think that you're away or you're still trying to get away. So you maybe don't even understand how long it is. Or maybe you do understand how long it is. And you still think you can just run away. So you don't have your back turned to me. And I come around the corner because I already shot you up and you're using it as an escape. So you're already weak. I just shoot you 2 more times and you're down. It's over.
Yeah, I have to be honest. In every single team fight, Wraith, who uses her tactical as an escape, is the easiest character to kill. That is almost always a guaranteed down.
Every time.
Every time. I think I hear the call out. Wraith is using tactical. Wraith is in Wraith form, and I look around for that blue streak, and I find it, and I just wait a couple of seconds, and then 2-3 shots later, she's dead.
It's almost a disadvantage to be using that.
Yeah.
You must be better off not using it.
You know, if you're around a corner, or you can turn a corner really quickly, or your teammate's close by, or you need to cover distance safely, sure, it's an excellent ability for that. You know, if you're starting it when you're behind cover and ending it when you're behind cover, great. Phenomenal.
Also, you can't take damage in the storm with it.
Yeah, it's great for traversing the storm or anywhere. You know, maybe you're in the middle of a carpet bomb or a Gibraltar ult. By no means are we saying it's useless.
Definitely not useless.
It's misused, though.
Constantly.
You get a 4% something speed boost when you're using it. It's not enough to make a difference. It's very easy for me to maintain line of sight on a Wraith who is using her Wraith form, as long as we're not in a building or somewhere with a lot of corners and nooks, right? Still a good ability, terribly misused, completely misunderstood. Stop thinking about it as an escape and think about it more of a, holy crap, I need to not take damage right now and get to my team, or I need to move here safely.
Yeah.
Right. Cool.
Personally, I'd use positioning tool. I'm a little more aggressive, so I know when to kind of use it. And if you're going to use a positioning tool, understand you don't want to be out of cover when you come out of it, because it may not be jarring for you when you come out, but it's much easier for someone who's looking at you to know you're about to come out, and when they see you go from, not visible to visible, to pull the trigger, and you're going to get hit by 3 shots, if not, maybe 2, but usually all 3 are aimed at you. So be behind cover when you come out of it. Be smart about it. It's not an escape. You're not Tracer.
That's really all there is to say about it.
Let's go to our ult. I want to
ultimate?
talk
Okay.
about that really badly.
So, just out of the gate, I think it is an interesting ability. Initially, when I looked at her kit and I looked at Pathfinder kit, I was like, oh, Wraith is just a better Pathfinder. She has a safer movement ability, and then her team movement ability is also faster and safer.
Mm-hmm.
But then at that point, I didn't realize that she has to set the start point, run to the end point, and set it at the end point, forcing herself out of position for the sake of her team.
Which, yes, you can go back through, but you are out of position trying to get there. You have to understand.
And also, don't forget that, as is the case with all deployables in this game, the enemy can use it too.
Yeah, that's what makes this game very unique. Is there's nothing that's isn't like in Overwatch. I can shoot through my Reinhardt shield, but they can't shoot back. In this game, everything that operates for you operates the exact same for the enemies.
Yeah. There's no one-sided properties aside from maybe like you not taking damage from your own Gibraltar ult or something like that.
There's no friendly fire. That's the only thing.
But her ability is useful. Her ult certainly useful. You can. Again, just rapidly reposition. You can use it to kind of almost sneak a whole team to a location if you use it in combination with her Wraith form, her tactical, whatever it's called. Right? You can, if you start behind cover, sometimes you can kind of move places a little bit harder to see when you don't physically see the Wraith go into Wraith form. So you can kind of use it to kind of sneak a team on a flank or something of that nature. I think it's one of the most situational ultimates in the game.
It's a combat ult. I mean, most things are a combat ult, but it's combat ult in certain areas of the map. You can't use it everywhere.
So for that sense, I think it's honestly one of the weaker ultimates in the game. Yes, it's really fast for traveling. If you're a Wraith, I almost want to tell you to use this more for an escape than not, because you get a 35% movement speed buff. Boof. Boof. When well, it's active. That is the fastest movement speed buff in the game. The only one that is right behind it is the speed boost you get from Bloodline's ultimate, which is
Bloodhound.
Bloodhound. Yeah, Bloodhound, which is 25%. Still good, but Wraith is definitely faster. You combine that with her Wraith form, that's an extra 5% basically. You can get moving really quickly.
really, really fast. Then
You know.
you can start using your Wraith form as an escape.
Yeah. And like I said, you can use it to move a whole team along a flank or get out of a tight situation. You know, you can use your Wraith form to avoid damage while setting up portals for your teammates to move to a different cover position while avoiding damage. It's good, but it's not great.
Not great, but good. Her ult makes her ability viable, and her ability makes her ult viable.
You know, so she synergizes with herself.
As long as you're using them together.
Yeah.
And she can put the team in great positions, like as we talked already. So it's not much more to talk about. So like think about and talk with your team. You know, where do we want to be? And like remind them, I can get us to that spot fast, and we can set up that portal. You don't want to leave that portal visible to the enemy, or if you do, like if it's in a house or something, understand that when you come out, they might have a shotgun pointed at your face. Just be aware that maybe you want to go through it first with your Wraith form active, so that way they can't hit you right away, and give your team a chance to get through it, so they'll get through unscathed. So just be aware that not only can they go through it, but they'll also, if I come across a Wraith ult, and I know there's a fight going on, I'll usually sit on the other side because I know someone's going to come through it as an escape or as a movement of any kind, and then as soon as they come through, I just gun them down. They're not expecting it, or if they are, they can't do anything because they're still disoriented going through it.
Certainly. So we'll move on to her passive, and that is Danger Sense. Basically, anytime someone is pointing a gun in her direction, she makes an audio cue that she's in danger. It's not bad, but I do think it is up there, in my opinion, for one of the worst ultimates in the game.
Or passives.
Or passives in the game. Sorry, passives in the game.
Early on, use this as an advantage, though. A lot of people don't understand who they're looking at. They don't think about it very often. So, as this is still early on in the game's lifespan, try to not react, I would say. When you hear it, don't panic and don't look for cover. Just tell your team and keep going the direction you're going, and maybe try to steer your path slightly without jarring your movement too much towards cover, so that way the people who are aiming at you don't know that you know that they...
Yeah.
So exactly. So that way they don't know that you know. Because a lot of them won't think, or at least a lot of new players and players in general won't think like, oh, that's a Wraith. They know I'm looking at them. They'll think, hey, there's people over there. And then if you move really rapidly, they'll be like, oh, they must know we're here. And they'll be like, oh, that's a Wraith. But if you don't do that, they'll just be like, there's people over there. They don't know we're here. But you do know that they're somewhere around. You can kind of peek out later and try to get a sight on them and just be like, hey, they're over there. And, keep moving around, safe.
You can almost use it to lure people places, right? If you communicate calmly to your team, you finish looting whatever you're doing, and then you move into like a canyon or a choke point somewhere and set up and look the other direction. Maybe you'll get a sight line on them, and oh hey, they're just looting the area and avoiding us, or oh hey, they're coming this way, and then you'll actually end up with the upper hand that way. So again, like kind of everything in this game, it's not useless, but it has a less immediate impact, I'd say, on the game than most of the passives. Kind of similar to the Mirage passive in the sense of like it kind of has its uses, but it's not great. It's not the Lifeline passive. It's not the Gibraltar passive. So, yeah, I think that kind of does it for Wraith. I don't have too much else I want to talk about.
Neither do I.
Overplayed, understood.
Understood, overplayed, ridiculously situational.
So I think she's can't be higher than B tier in my opinion.
I want to put her in C tier, but I solo queue a lot, and I'm tired of Wraith. But she honestly probably is just as good as a Mirage if you play her right. And I'm assuming everybody here has good gun skill. And as the game goes on, I know everybody will learn her a little better and when she should be used and when you should be using her abilities and her ults. And if that many people are picking her, there's got to be some reason. They got to be getting some kind of wins eventually. So I'm feeling B, but if you want to go C, I also understand.
I think B tier works for me. she might be somebody I put in here almost like Pathfinder, where I'm like almost like a C plus, a B minus. Um, the other thing too is, like we discussed with a lot of the other heroes to this point, she doesn't slot into any composition. If there was a solo queue in this game, maybe she'd be a bit higher.
Right.
Maybe she'd be a B plus. Maybe
Right.
she'd be an A tier.
In a solo queue, I can see her being very viable.
But
there is no solo modes.
If you're building a comp that is meant to synergize with itself, it's not her. There are probably a few strats you can run with her ultimate, maybe.
Yeah.
But again,
there's a lot of other heroes and legends that fill what she's supposed to do better.
And if we look at how we talked about the tier list functioning, right? B is that below point of balance, but still viable in the right situation or with the right team composition. C being that you really need to build a team all the way around it. She's somewhere in the middle. Depending upon your playstyle, she can be okay, but she can also be god awful.
Just terrible. But
so, I think that pretty much does it. I'm excited to see if they release any new heroes in the future. I'd like to see another tracker personally.
I would love to see another tracker. I've loved my time with Bloodhound. I wouldn't mind seeing someone else who I can try to use, but the more I play Bloodhound, the more I don't see myself swaying off him just because of how used to I am to his abilities now and how much enjoyment I get out of trying to hunt down an actual squad with their footprints. Even if it was 60 seconds ago, I can try to really go full detective mode and try to hunt that down. And I feel like an actual tracker and a hunter. And I've played other games where there's been trackers and hunters, but I've never felt like I'm not sure if you played. There was that 4v1 beast game.
Yeah, Evolve.
There's trackers in there, and I think everyone's almost a tracker.
Everyone's almost a tracker.
And it's similar to Bloodhounds, but it doesn't feel the same because it's different. Everyone is, and you're tracking this giant beast and everything, but this one just feels like you're on the hunt for the squad that doesn't know that you're in the area, and he really feels like a predator. And it's really fun to play as him.
So, I guess final notes, because I know you're going to do it anyways. Let us know in the comments if you disagree with any of our opinions, or if you think there's something we missed out on one of the characters. Like, no, Wraith is super viable because X situation makes her super good, or no, Lifeline's awful because I don't know. You're wrong.
You're wrong on that one. You're wrong, but I would love to hear you try.
But yeah, with that, we'll update this tier list as kind of the game progresses. New heroes get released, or new metas get discovered. Those sort of things.
New heroes, because this game is so meta based, will throw all of these metas into whack.
Yeah,
I'm very excited because as you see, again, a Bloodhound and a Bangalore work really well together. A Bloodhound's also kind of a direct counter to a Bangalore. Like, you throw someone else in this mix of heroes that could be a counter for someone. Not only does it mess up all of those compositions, but it adds to those compositions as well because they then synergize well usually with those characters. So again, excited to see all that. Unless we get a Ghostbuster who just sucks up all the gas or the smoke. That would be pretty triggered. That would be pretty funny. I wouldn't mind seeing that.
As a caustic pocket main, I would be pretty upset about that.
I wouldn't mind. I think it'd be hilarious. Some old Ghostbuster guy running around some Luigi's Mansion guy.
Yeah, you suck it up and shoot. You could even shoot it back out.
That would be hilarious.
Pretty funny. But
I would enjoy seeing that.
Thanks for checking out the tier list, and we'll see you guys next time.